Welcome into the Commanders Report live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. We've got a bunch of great Commanders content coming your way here over the next hour or so. Once again, we got 4 segments of Commanders content for you guys today. First up, the latest Commanders news and rumors. Going to be talking about an interesting trade idea that would send TJ Watt to the Washington Commanders, but they have to give away Terry McLaurin to make it happen. I'll be breaking down my thoughts on that trade idea here at the top of today's show. Then we'll get into some players, 8 players on the Washington Commanders roster that I think need to prove it this year and are under the most pressure heading into the 2025 season. Then we'll get into my official 2025 pre-training camp Commanders roster projection, all 53 players that I expect to make this final roster this year, at least to this point. And then we'll get into the Q&A, our weekly mailbag. So if you guys got a question that you want to get on the show, you guys always have the best questions. You can get down there in the live chat and use hashtag Commanders. So this is how you do it, guys. You go down there in the live chat room, you comment hashtag Commanders, and then you put your question after that hashtag Commanders. So, for example, hashtag Commanders, will Jaden Daniels win the MVP this year? Or whatever question you want. You get that in there, and Joey, our producer, is going to be able to find that and get it on today's show. Or if you want to skip the line and you want to make sure your question gets on the show today, you guys can send in a super chat of any dollar amount, $1, $2, $5, $10, $20. Doesn't matter. If you guys super chat, we'll make sure you get on the mailbag today. Greatly appreciate your guys' support. With that, let's bring in our producer today, Mr. Joey Petersen. Joey, it's always great to be here with you, my friend. And today, our question that we're going to talk about before we get into our segments as people start to file in here, will Deebo Samuel get over or under 1,000 scrimmage yards this year? He's only done it twice in his career. He got close last year. He got over 900 scrimmage yards last year, but he's only gotten over 1,000 twice. And in I think it was 2021, if I'm not mistaken, he had over 1,700 scrimmage yards in a first-team All-Pro season with the 49ers.
I would lean towards the under, but if it was at 800, I'd say over. I think it's going to be somewhere in that 800 to 1,000 range. That's kind of my guess, just because, I don't know, we've seen a little bit of the speed fade away a little bit, and if Terry McLaurin's on this roster, he's going to get the bulk and majority of all those targets, of a lot of those catches. And I get it, you can use Deebo in the run game as well, but part of the reason that he got close to it last year is because Brandon Ayuk went down with an injury. He was that team's wide receiver 1, and so their best weapon on offense outside of like George Kittle. Yep. And of course, Christian McCaffrey dealt with injuries for San Francisco last year as well. So that's kind of why I'm leaning under, but I think it's somewhere a little bit over 800.
Yeah, right now we got about 60% saying that they think he's going to get over. I could see, I don't think it's impossible for him to get over 1,000, even though 1,000 is quite a bit. I mean, guys like Jacoby Myers got over 1,000 scrimmage yards last year. So, I look at this offense. I think it's going to be very explosive. I think there's going to be a lot of yardage to go around. I think Terry's going to be able to eat. Zach Ertz is going to get his share. And I do think Deebo, especially on those early down screens that Cliff loves to use, orbit motion type of stuff. And then I do think they're going to use him a little bit as a running back type of player in the backfield too. I do think he's going to be quite heavily featured, especially on early downs. We'll see just how effective he can be. I don't think he's quite as fast as he used to be, but plain and simply, Joey, we're going to talk about this. He has led the league in yards after the catch per reception for the last 5 years in the National Football League. There's just nobody that does what Deebo Samuel does after the catch, even though he's not getting like 12 yards after the catch like he was in his prime.
Yeah, which absolutely shocks me. I mean, he's still got that awesome little add-on to his game of being so hard to bring down.
Yeah.
And part of it's because he's so big, he's so aggressive, he's not afraid to run over anybody. Like, he has that perfect blend of wide receiver and running back to him. It's funny, if you guys don't know, I also host our Packers channel here at Chat Sports, and I was just working on a video talking about Savion Williams, and I compared him to Deebo Samuel. Mm-hmm. What Adam Stinovich might be able to do with Williams, I think, is very similar to the trajectory of what Deebo Samuel's career has been. Now, it might not be as great, might be as successful, but I think those are two very similar type players. But Deebo, when you're talking about a guy who can catch the ball, who can run the ball, who's great in space, Deebo's automatically the player I thought of.
Absolutely. We're going to get into our first segment here in just a second. But first, who's here? Let us know down there in the comment section. Type those me's in the chat if you want to shout out on today's stream. I see Kenny Strasser is here. We got Brent Robinson here. We got It's Torch. We got JG. We got Nicole Williams. We've got that one Washington fan 17. We've got John Stoyev. We've got ZX, Nicole, JG. We got 78 people watching live. We got my beautiful girlfriend, Cassie Voth, watching. Everybody say hi to Cassie in the chat. We've got ZX again. We got a good crew of Commanders fans ready to get things going here, guys. So let's get into our first segment right now. The latest news and rumors surrounding the Washington Commanders are coming at you guys right now. There is a new article that says that the Washington Commanders could trade Terry McLaurin to the Pittsburgh Steelers in exchange for superstar edge rusher T.J. Watt. I will react to that article at the top of today's edition of the Commanders Report. Then we'll get into the developmental plan for first-round rookie Josh Conerly Jr., which was revealed by ESPN's Washington Commanders reporter earlier this week. And then we'll finish up today's show with Deebo Samuel's elite trait that I think makes him the perfect fit for Cliff Kingsbury's offense heading into the 2025 season. Before we get into the content today, I want to give a big shout out to Melvin Johnson Sr. He put in a $2 super chat. Super thanks, I should say, on a video that we posted last week. So I wanted to give a big shout out to the even small donation here. We do appreciate when you guys send in those super thanks. And if you guys want a shout out on a future edition of the Commanders Report, you guys can send in a super thanks below this video. Doesn't matter the dollar amount. It could be $1, $2, $5, $10, even $20. If you guys appreciate what we do here at the Commanders Report and you want to send us a little bit of a tip, it's that button that looks like the heart sign with the money symbol in the middle. If you guys want to send in a donation, we greatly appreciate it, and you might even get a shout out on a future edition of the Commanders Report. All right, so let's get into this crazy blockbuster trade idea from Fox Sports' David Hellman, where he threw out the idea of the Commanders acquiring T.J. Watt in exchange for Terry McLaurin and what would be the kind of trade of the offseason, I would say, if this actually went down. But this is what David had to say in his article as to why it could happen. If Washington were to trade Terry McLaurin, they'd be opening some financial wiggle room to add another lucrative player. They could get at least 2, if not 3 years of play out of Watt before they have to worry about extending Jaden Daniels. They definitely need the pass rush help. Watt would give Dan Quinn a blue-chip player, which he doesn't really have right now on his Commanders defense. So listen, guys, if Pittsburgh is willing to come to the table and they're willing to trade T.J. Watt, even for a guy like Terry McLaurin, and let's say Terry's asking for like $35, $36 million per season, Justin Jefferson level money, I would certainly think about it, guys. I really, really would, because you look at T.J. Watt, like he has been probably the most valuable defensive player in football since he was drafted back in 2017. Since being drafted, he has 108 sacks. That is first in the National Football League, even over Myles Garrett. By quite a margin, actually. I think it's like 6.5 sacks above him. Then tackles for loss as a run defender. He's first in the NFL since he was drafted in TFLs with 126, so he's an impact as a run defender as well. And then where I think Watt is actually most valuable for the Pittsburgh Steelers and why I think he has been the most valuable defensive player in football, and arguably still is the turnover production that he has. There has not been a player in the National Football League that has caused more turnovers for their football team than T.J. Watt has since 2017. A whopping 40 forced fumbles plus interceptions since the 2017 season. And then the next 13 names on the list are all defensive backs, and he's 5 ahead of this number 2 player on that list in Justin Simmons. Okay, so Watt is just in a completely different category when it comes to edge rushers in the National Football League in terms of the impact that he gives to a defense. And by the way, he's still showing that kind of production. Last year, even though he was injured for the final 3 games of the year, okay, he was still finished 8th in sacks with 11.5. He was tied for first in TFLs with 40, and he was first by a wide margin, all right? He led the NFL in forced fumbles by 8, okay? Like, that is just an insane number, seeing a player get double-digit forced fumbles during a season, okay? That is absolutely unheard of, which is why Watt was the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year before he got injured late in the 2024 season. Then, if you get TJ Watt in a trade, like if you need to replace Terry McLaurin, there's still a guy like Amari Cooper, who 2 seasons ago was a bona fide number 1 receiver in this league, still has great size, great, possibly even elite foot speed, really good route running chops, and he doesn't have the best ball skills in the world, but certainly good enough. I would take Watt and Amari Cooper, any day of the week. All right, I really would. But with that being said, I really doubt this trade is a possibility. It's a fun thing to kind of throw out there and kind of think of, and if I'm the Commanders and this is actually a possibility and Terry McLaurin's asking for too much money, this is certainly something that I would think about, because TJ could make this defense, overnight from like maybe an average group to an above average group to potentially even top 10 unit in the National Football League with just his presence on the defensive line here in Washington. The first reason why I think that this probably isn't a likely possibility here, guys, is that the Steelers aren't going to let go of Watt. For all the reasons that we talked about, Watt's been so valuable for their defense that there's just no way that they're going to let him leave, especially in a season where they're bringing in Aaron Rodgers for one season to try and do what the Buccaneers did with Tom Brady, win a Super Bowl in one season with an aging quarterback. And you guys can see here with TJ Watt, the impact is immense. All right, the Steelers lose 90% of their games when Watt isn't on the field, whereas they win 2/3 of their games when he is on the field. There's like a 14-point swing when you take into account points per game for the Steelers and opponent points per game for their defense when he's on the field versus off the field, and the sacks per game and turnovers per game take a huge dip as well. And if you think that that is kind of an outdated number, just take a look at the impact last year before TJ Watt's ankle injury versus after his injury. The Steelers didn't win a freaking football game last year after he got injured. That just goes to show you how valuable TJ Watt is, and you guys can see in those same numbers, it's the same kind of drastic shift when TJ Watt is not making the kind of impact he is used to making for the Steelers defense. So the Steelers really don't have any kind of incentive to let him go, and I do think they will end up extending him this offseason. And the truth of the matter is, guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers need TJ Watt more than they need Terry McLaurin. They already made a big wide receiver trade this offseason with DK Metcalf. They have a couple of younger receivers that they like in Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin III. TJ Watt might be the most valuable player. In fact, there's no might, all right? He is the most valuable player on that Steelers team, and if they trade him away, I would say their chances of winning a Super Bowl this year with Aaron Rodgers go down from where they are already at. And then the second thing here, guys, is I don't think the Commanders want to trade Terry McLaurin either. We have covered this extensively on this show, where like the Commanders are trying to win now, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers are, and the Commanders, I should say, are in a position here where Terry McLaurin is their bona fide number 1 receiver, and if he's not in this room, they don't have a number 1 receiver. I like Deebo Samuel. We're going to talk about him later in today's show and why I think he's the perfect gadget wide receiver weapon type of player in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, but you need somebody that you can trust as your number 1 alpha type receiver in this offense if you're going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. And if you let go of him, you don't have that anymore. So personally, guys, I don't think that either team is going to come to the table on this potential deal. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. If you're the Washington Commanders and the Pittsburgh Steelers are offering you TJ Watt in exchange for Terry McLaurin, would you trade and pay Watt in this scenario? Type A for accept or D for decline. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, we're going to be talking about our sponsor today at Fanatics. And while I'm talking about Fanatics here, go ahead down there in the comment section and let me know if you accept or decline this trade. And we're going to be talking about Deebo Samuel a little bit later in today's show, guys. But before we do that, I want to tell you about our friends at Fanatics here, where they got Deebo Samuel jerseys at a great price on their website right now. When you go to chatsports.com/Deebo, that is our special link that's down there in the comments and description of today's show. You click that link and you make a purchase, and Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds to help us out with our channel. That helps us keep the lights on. That helps us pay rent in our studio. All right, that does all the different stuff to help pay for this entire operation, where we give you guys free Commanders content every single day. So if you want to help out the channel, you are already planning on getting a Deebo Samuel jersey, and you want to help us out as well, you can go chatsports.com/Deebo to make that happen. Now let's talk about first-round pick out of Oregon, offensive tackle Josh Conerly Jr. And ESPN's John Keim says that the plan for the Commanders is to play him at right tackle in the short term, but the long-term plan is that he's eventually going to replace Laremy Tunsil as this team's starting left tackle. Keim said this in a recent ESPN article. The Commanders are excited about Conerly. The belief is that he could move to left tackle down the road. For now, though, Conerly will play right tackle. They have not handed him the starting job. He worked mostly with the second group in the spring. But his footwork and ability to play in space and move on pulling action makes the team confident. It's hard to accurately gauge an offensive lineman until the pads come on in practice, but his movement skills impressed. And that's exactly what I heard coming out of Commanders OTAs this year, guys. And I think Conerly is going to be very good at right tackle. I really like that you are solidifying the two tackle positions this offseason. It was a major issue for this team, and it frankly has been a major issue for this team for many seasons. So the fact that you trade for Laremy Tunsil, one of the best pass-protecting left tackles in the game, and then you draft a guy in Josh Conerly Jr. who's a really good, I think he's going to be a day one ready right tackle in this league. I think, fortifies this position for at least the next 2 years. But there's a question here. Should the Washington Commanders' plan really be to start Conerly's career at right tackle and then force him to pretty much learn a whole new position at left tackle and flip sides after 2 years of right tackle reps? I think that there is certainly an argument to be made that they shouldn't do that, because after 2 seasons playing on the right, he's going to be used to playing on that side, and moving him over to the left risks having him not play as well when you move him over to the left side. And, it will be 2 years because Tunsil is under contract for 2 years on his current contract. So at the very minimum here, unless there's like a career-ending injury for Laremy Tunsil this year, which God forbid, let's hope that doesn't happen, Conerly's going to be playing on the right side for 2 whole seasons before he would be moving over to the left side. And he would have to, if you listen to offensive linemen who have made this change, they say it's so weird to start. It's like wiping with the other hand is what a lot of guys like to say. And that's tough, all right? Some guys don't make that adjustment. So my take on this whole situation, guys, is that if Conerly is really thriving at right tackle, let's say he's one of the best right tackles in football, and then Tunsil leaves after 2 years, I wouldn't move him off of right tackle. Nowadays, a lot of top edge rushers are lining up against the right tackle because most teams have their best pass protector at left tackle. So a lot of teams and defenses put their best edge rusher against the right tackle because they're not as good as pass protectors, and it gives their edge rushers more opportunities to get to the passer. But you look at some of the best teams in the league with the best offensive lines, teams like the Philadelphia Eagles. Lane Johnson, one of the best tackles period in the National Football League, is a true right tackle. So if Conerly's really thriving there on the right side these first 2 years, I wouldn't even think about moving him over to the left. I would get somebody else to replace Laremy Tunsil at left tackle. I'm open to the idea of Conerly moving over to the left side, especially if he's just okay, or if he struggles on the right side to start his NFL career. But I think there's certainly an argument to be made that if he thrives at right tackle, he's one of the best in the league at that spot, that you really shouldn't move him off of that spot. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Should it be Washington's plan to eventually move Conerly to left tackle eventually? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section to let me know what you guys think about this potential possibility. And then we'll finish up today's show here with our last topic of discussion, where, there's a lot of people out there that call Deebo Samuel fat, that say that he is no longer a good wide receiver. They call him washed, and they think he's not going to be productive with the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Part of the reason for that is because of the production that he had in San Francisco last year, where he only had 670 yards in a season where Brandon Ayuk went down around midway through the year, and Deebo did not really step up in a big way as that team's number one wide receiver. Guys like Jawan Jennings and even tight end George Kittle was out-receiving Deebo Samuel in that San Francisco offense last year. So there's a lot of people out there that are saying Deebo is done. He can't bounce back. His career is over. But what you guys need to realize about a guy like Deebo Samuel is that he's just not your run-of-the-mill wide receiver, right? He's not a route runner type. He's not somebody that's going to burn you deep down the field on a 9 route and moss you down the sideline. That's just not the type of player that he is. He's less of like a true wide receiver and more of an offensive weapon that needs to be utilized in creative ways. Kyle Shanahan did a really good job of that in San Francisco, but I also think Cliff Kingsbury is going to do a great job of that here in Washington. And Deebo's elite elite trait that Cliff Kingsbury needs to do a good job utilizing here in Washington is his run after the catch ability, the rack ability, because there's nobody in football that is better at the wide receiver position at that than Deebo Samuel, all right? Over the last 5 seasons, including last year when apparently he was completely terrible, he led the entire NFL in yards after the catch per reception for the San Francisco 49ers. So he's one of the more elite screen wide receivers in the league. He's one of the best short area targets in the league. And then when you get him going on a dig route and you get him the ball in space in that intermediate level of the field and you give him a head of steam, he is so difficult to bring down, all right? So Deebo, that is what Cliff Kingsbury needs to do with him in this offense, is get him the ball out in space and let Deebo do Deebo things. And the good news is I think Cliff Kingsbury showed last year that he's more than capable of utilizing his players and his talents and the guys with their strengths to be able to make these guys into the best versions of themselves and put them in a position where they can succeed. So I think that's very good news for Washington Commanders fans, is that I trust Cliff Kingsbury, who I do think is probably going to get a head coaching job, unfortunately, with another team next offseason. I trust him to go out there and use Deebo in the right way. Use him on wide receiver screens. Get creative with the way that you use him in pre-snap motion with orbit and jet sweep motions. You can also get him the ball in those intermediate dig routes that Jaden Daniels is so good at hitting. We saw that with Noah Brown last year, and Noah's going to be playing a slightly different role this year, but Deebo's going to be somebody that does some things that this offense absolutely needs to get done, and I think that it's going to be a very irreplaceable type of role in this offense. So I'm really excited to see what Deebo Samuel's going to do this year, but let me know, over or under? Will Deebo Samuel get over or under 1,000 scrimmage yards, so that's receiving plus rushing yards, for the Commanders offense this year? He got close last year. He got about 930 scrimmage yards last year for San Francisco. So type O for over or U for under. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for daily and free Commanders updates right here on YouTube. First segment in the books, Mr. Joey. Our next segment, 8 players on the Commanders roster that need to prove it. Anything that sticks out to you in that segment there, Joey?
Yeah, I'm a little confused about kind of what you were talking about with Connerly. I feel like it would be a little bit weird too if he's a lead on that right side to kind of switch things up and send him over to that left side.
And listen, there's success stories with stuff like that. Like Tristan Wirfs was like the best right tackle in football, and then they moved him over to the left side last year, and he was still just as good.
Yeah,
so
he's a freak, though.
So listen, I'm not saying it can't be done.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a little bit of a risk.
I agree.
And if he's not terrific on the right side after 2 years there, and you feel like he could be better on the left side, sure, move him. But I just get worried about, we're going to have him take 2 whole years of reps on the right side, and then we're going to have him completely flip his footwork. And it is a different position, all right? It is. The techniques and stuff are the same, but they're flipped, all right? So some guys are just better on the left side, and some guys are just better on the right side. And if he's playing really well on the right side, I don't know if I want to risk, losing that.
Yeah, I agree. What I'm really excited about for Connerly is playing in this division. He's going to see Micah Parsons twice a year. He's going to see a Vic Fangio defensive line twice a year. And then he's going to see the Giants defensive line twice a year.
By the way, he kicked Abdul Carter's ass last year in their game, Oregon versus Penn State. He
that was
destroyed him.
Big Ten championship game? Or are you talking regular season? Because I know they rematched in the Big Ten championship.
I think both times.
Okay.
Both times. He did a really good job against him.
You might need to do a deep dive on that at some point.
Yeah, that might be a good video idea, kind of doing a deep dive on that and kind of just showing him pushing him to the ground 5 times. Because here's the thing with Carter. As a run defender, he's always on the ground, all right? He's just so easy because he's so low to the ground. He doesn't have fantastic balance where these guys can pretty much just put him on the ground. He falls way too often as a run defender. Generational first step and quickness and speed, which is going to potentially make him a Hall of Famer. But Connerly's got a really good first step too, and he's got great pass protection technique. Offensive line coaches love Connerly. All right, they love him because of his technique, his quickness, he's going to be able to hold up in the National Football League right away, in my opinion. And I'm very excited to see what he's going to do in his rookie season. By the way, his first game, he's going up against Abdul Carter.
I know. That's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome, man.
I know this isn't Giants now, but if you threw it back to 2024, where do you think Carter would have gone in that draft?
Very high.
You think he goes...
Because we're talking about all the quarterbacks. So the quarterbacks go 1 through 3.
Okay, and then
who is the fourth guy
Cardinals
taken?
chose Marv.
I still think they probably go with Marv.
Okay, and then Chargers took Alt.
I think they still go with Alt. They love their O-line.
Giants took Malik.
I still think the Giants take Malik.
Okay, and then Titans took Latham. You think he goes to Tennessee?
He probably goes to Tennessee.
Tennessee at 7?
Yeah, I mean they should.
Yeah.
Because Latham is just. I mean, he showed some decent things last year, but he was not worth a top 10 pick in my eyes, and he showed that on film last year. Yeah, I would say Abdul would probably go 7 to the Titans.
Okay, there we go.
That's probably what I would say. All right, we do have a mailbag coming up here relatively soon, guys. If you haven't gotten your Commanders question in, you can get your question on the show for free when you comment #Commanders. Put your question on the other end of that chat. So appreciate your guys' support. Get your questions in, but we're going to get into our next segment here, guys. I got 8 players on the Commanders roster that I think need to prove it this year. So we're going to get to that here in just a second. Joey is... All right, Joey says we're good, so let's get into it right now. 8 players on the Commanders roster that need to prove it this year. The 2025 season is going to be a big one for the Burgundy and Gold, and today I've got 8 players on the Commanders roster that need to prove it this season, and you can maybe even say have the most pressure on them to perform here in 2025. Before we get into the video today, get us started down there in the comment section by letting me know which Commanders player has the most to prove this year. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Who's under the most pressure to perform on the Commanders roster? We'll start here with Deebo Samuel, because Deebo, coming off a down year there in San Francisco, he was asked to kind of be like a true number 1 receiver after Brandon Ayuk went down, and it just didn't go that way. He was even getting outproduced as a receiver by guys like Juwan Jennings, George Kittle, the tight end there in San Francisco, and you could tell Brock Purdy just didn't necessarily trust him to win on his routes. He's also, taken a lot of flack this offseason, with the quote-unquote fat Deebo pictures. This is on Media Row during the Super Bowl week where, an unflattering photo where it looks like he's fat, all this different stuff, and people were throwing some, warm-up videos of him looking like he was jogging during Commanders OTAs and saying he looks slow, even though he's not going 100% speed. But listen, guys, I think Deebo's got a great opportunity here with the Washington Commanders because, like Kyle Shanahan with the San Francisco 49ers, I think he's joining forces with an offensive coordinator here in Cliff Kingsbury that knows how to use him in the right ways, and he's going to use him as kind of a gadget type of piece. He's going to be a great run blocker for this team. He's going to be fantastic on wide receiver screens. I think Cliff is going to use him a lot on pre-snap motions. I think that, the routes that he does run well, things like slants and digs, are the things that Cliff is going to want him to run on the backside of concepts. So I think that Deebo's actually a terrific fit as a number 2 receiver to Terry McLaurin in this offense. And for me, it's pretty simple when it comes to Deebo this year, guys. If he thrives in this offense, he's going to get another contract, all right? Because plain simply, the Commanders, they traded for him with 1 year left on his deal, but they did not give him an extension, all right? They're saying, you got to prove yourself this year. And if he thrives, he's going to get that next contract and stay here for the long term. But if he disappoints and he looks more like the Deebo Samuel from last year where he didn't even get 700 receiving yards, he's going to be a free agent next spring, and the Commanders are going to be looking for a new wide receiver too, so the pressure is on for Deebo. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will Deebo Samuel get a second contract with the Washington Commanders? Give me a yes or no down there in the comment section. Pretty simple for today's pinned question. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time, but let me know if you think Deebo gets a second contract here in the nation's capital. All right, so now let's get into Marshawn Lattimore, another player that had a down year last year, dealt with injuries, And he's coming in this year hoping for a bounce-back year. And Marshawn, looked fantastic during Commanders' OTAs. He looks like that hamstring is fully healed, and, the expectation is he's going to be this team's legit number one shutdown corner. And if he can get back to 100% healthy, he's got the talent and the ability to be that for this team. Now, he's got two big things to prove this year. Number one, he needs to prove that he can stay healthy, all right? The best ability is availability, right? And the second thing is that he needs to prove that when he is on the field, that he can still play like a number one corner, because when he was on the field for the Commanders last year, that wasn't the case because he was nursing that hamstring injury while he was playing. You guys can see here throughout Marshawn Lattimore's career that he has missed quite a few games, especially over the last 3 seasons. He would very periodically miss some games early on in his career, but he would stay healthy for most of the season. But then the last 3 years, 10 games missed in 2022, 7 games missed in 2023, and then 8 games missed in 2024. And that's coincided with some lowering PFF grades in his career as well. You look at those first 2 years in New Orleans, a legit shutdown number one corner, the 7th and 18th highest graded corner in football those 2 seasons. But then after that, he's only had 1 season where he is ranked in the top 50 of corners, and that was in 2021. Okay, so last year he barely cracked the top 90 in corners because he was playing hurt for most of the season, and the Commanders are hoping that he's going to be able to come in this year back to 100% health, stay healthy, and then play at a high level like he did earlier on in his NFL career. Because when he's healthy, he's awesome. He's got great speed, physicality. He does a really good job, but he just needs to prove that he can stay healthy and that he's still got it, even though he's getting older. Then we get to Brian Robinson Jr. entering a contract year, and with the drafting of Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who has really done a good job during the summer this year, and he's expected to really carve out a role for himself in future seasons at the running back position. If B-Rob is going to earn himself, another contract, and he's going to be the long-term answer at number one running back here in Washington, he's going to have to break out this year, all right? And I think that he's played pretty darn well and very consistent over his 3 seasons to this point. He's always in that 700-yard kind of range. Last year he put up the most touchdowns of his career. He's consistently gotten better at that, and his yards per carry has consistently gotten better as well. But just, still under 800 yards. He's never been an 1,000-yard rusher. I think he needs to take his game to a whole nother level this year and get close to that 1,000-yard mark if he wants to remain the starting running back for the Washington Commanders long term, because if they're going to be spending big money on a running back on this offense, he's got to be worth it, all right? And with a guy like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt that has a lot of promise on this Commanders roster heading into the year, you got to prove that you got to tell essentially the Commanders front office that, hey, don't turn to Ja'Cory. I'm your guy. He's got to prove that this year. So if he doesn't, I think that he's going to be a free agent next year. Another guy that I think has a lot to prove after getting a big contract is Javon Kinlaw. Now, this team loves him, all right? He was their top target heading into free agency. And they gave him a 3-year contract worth $15 million per season, $45 million total. So that's a lot of money to be spending on an interior defensive lineman. It sounds like they're going to use him on the outside, on the edge, on early downs in particular. He's very athletic, very strong, great first step. And, he's had some good seasons in this league, but he's also had some bad seasons. You guys can see there 2022 and 2021, 0 sack production. But over the last 2 years, he has gotten a pretty decent amount of sacks, where he's put up 8 sacks in the last 2 years. 4.5 of those came last year with the New York Jets, had 2 forced fumbles and 5 TFLs as well. So he has been getting better, but, it's certainly not at the level where he is an impact, disruptive interior defensive lineman that you give a big contract to. There's a little bit of projection here from the Washington Commanders, and obviously, Adam Peters believes in him. He was a part of the group that drafted him in San Francisco very early, and, Washington now expects Kinlaw to be an immediate impact, not only on the interior, but it sounds like they're going to utilize his size and athleticism combo to play him at the edge a little bit as well. So I'm very intrigued by Javon Kinlaw, but he's got to prove this year that he was worth that money for the Washington Commanders. Another interior player that's got something to prove this year is Jazon Newton, or Johnny Newton, whichever one you prefer. But Newton, had the same foot procedure done on both feet last year during the offseason before he got drafted by the Commanders. Then he really didn't have an offseason program with Washington. And then, when he got healthy, he got back into the fold with Washington, and he did show some good things. He had 2 sacks towards the end of the season last year, made some impact plays with some TFLs, had forced fumble and a recovery as well. And I loved his tape coming out of Illinois. All right, I think he can be truly a disruptive pass rusher from the interior, but this is going to have to be the year where he proves that he was worth that high draft selection and he was worth the hype coming out of the Fighting Illini. So I have a high level of belief in him. I think that he could be a really great running mate next to Daron Payne for many years here in Washington. But he certainly has a lot to prove heading into year 2 now that he's fully healthy. Another guy that I think has a lot to prove is Jordan McGee, who this team really believes in, and they think he can be kind of like a quote-unquote Jeremy Chin type of player, even though Jeremy was technically a safety and Jordan McGee is technically a linebacker. Chin was a big safety, and McGee is an undersized linebacker. So they're actually, not completely far apart in terms of physical skill set. McGee is known more as a pass coverage type of player. That's what he was known for at Temple. Very, very athletic, as per usual when it comes to Adam Peters' draft picks. But they're expecting him to step into that role of kind of that intermediary type of bandit type of player, whatever you want to call it, the J-Ron Curse role, the Jeremy Chin role. They're expecting him to step into that role after not really playing last season. They carried him on the roster, didn't play a whole lot. So this is really the year where they are expecting him to play a big role this year. Then another player here that is going to have a lot to prove is Luke McCaffrey. He's heading into the second year of his career. Didn't do a whole lot last year, just 18 catches on the season, so about a catch per game, a little bit more than that with 168 yards. Honestly, Mac did the most of his damage as a kick returner, and I still think he brings some of that value to this team. I do expect him to make the team. But in terms of his role, that's going to have to be carved out in training camp, and it's going to have to be earned every step of the way. I think he's made some strides, and the reports from him coming out of OTAs have been very positive. So really rooting for Luke McCaffrey. I mean, this team spent a pretty high draft pick on him, so I'm hoping he works out. But this is a big year to really determine his long-term future with this franchise. Then Percy Butler, a safety that really struggled for this team last year. They bring in Will Harris, who's kind of a similar type of player, so it's very possible Butler loses to Harris in camp, and they let Jordan McGee play that kind of bandit safety, kind of hybrid safety type of role, and Butler doesn't play a whole lot this year. But the coaching staff have really praised his offseason. They really seem to like him. But despite that, not a good PFF grade last year. He was dead last among NFL safeties with just a 41.3 PFF grade. That is absolutely abysmal. He's going to have to get a lot better this year, guys, if he wants to see the field and he wants to have success for this defense. He certainly has quite a bit to prove once we get to training camp in a couple of weeks. That'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report. If you are a real one and you made it to the end of today's show, type those real ones in all caps down there in the comments section. We want to show you guys some love down there in the comments section. So really do appreciate all of your guys' support. But make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're a real one, you made it to the end of the video, only the real ones are subscribed, right? So if you're saying that you're a real one, you better make sure you have clicked that subscribe button because we give you guys free, informative Commanders content every single day on this channel. So if you don't want to miss any of that, click that subscribe button right now. Second segment in the books. Mr. Joey, anything that stood out to you there in that segment that you want to talk about?
No, I agree. I think it's going to be a big year for a lot of those guys. I would say of those all you listed, I really was keying in on Brian Robinson Jr. I think this is going to be a really, really big year for him. I know you haven't done as much research on it. How's the running back class next year?
Couldn't tell you.
Couldn't tell. Okay,
couldn't tell you.
Because I know this year's was pretty solid, one of the better classes in a long time. I'm curious to see what next year's would be like, kind of as a threat level to B-Rob for this year.
Here's the thing about Washington. They don't need to have like a star level back next to Jaden Daniels. Because last year they were a top 5 rushing team in the league according to EPA. Mostly because when Jaden Daniels pulls the football, it's off to the races. It's a first down. It's a very successful play for the offense. It's a touchdown even. Jaden had a couple rushing touchdowns last year. So you don't need like a Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey or anything like that here. You just need a serviceable back. Yeah. So like if Brian has a good season and he's expecting to get paid a lot of money, he's probably going to be a free agent. But I think the most likely scenario here is that he's probably going to be a free agent. Because if he disappoints this year, they're going to let him go. But if he plays so well that, like, all right, it's going to be a big contract, I think the Commanders are kind of thinking, well, we can pay someone less and still have an effective run game, so we're going to let him go.
Yeah, I feel like to get a contract, he's going to have to put up like 1,400 yards or something like that. Like, he's going to have a really big season, I feel like. Because if not, like you said, they've seen the production they've had with a fine running back room. It's not terrible, it's not great, but they've seen that production, and they're probably going to, think about saying, you know what, we could get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
We're not going to pay him this unless he absolutely makes them.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. And if Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt looks like he's a future guy that could carry a room, like, they're going to give him the job next year.
Yeah.
I've only heard great things about him at OTAs. Now, obviously, it's different when the pads come on.
Yeah.
So we'll see how he ends up holding up and during the preseason and during the season. I'm guessing he'll make the final roster, but it's going to be an interesting dynamic here to see if Brian Robinson Jr. has a future in Washington beyond this.
Yeah, Ja'Cory's a guy I'm really excited to see in the preseason. He's going to be one of those guys that helps us get through those games. And
I'll be like, Sam Hartman, why are we throwing it? Let's hand it off to Ja'Cory.
Hey, I want. You know who I want back? Trace McSorley.
Yeah.
That's who I
Trace
want back.
McSorley. You know who I want back too, just for the games?
The wide receiver.
Martavis Bryant. I need Martavis Bryant back on this football team, man. But yeah, next one here. We got a mailbag after this next segment, guys.
We need some more questions.
Joey says we need more questions. So we got 100 people in the chat room right now. If you haven't put in a question yet, you can get a question on the show for free. All you have to do is put a question down there and put #Commanders somewhere in the question. So make sure you guys get those questions in. While I'm in this next segment, it's my official 2025 53-man roster projection for the Washington Commanders before we get into training camp. So let's get into it right now. Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, it is my official 53-man roster projection for your Washington Commanders. Before we get into the start of training camp, we've gone through the offseason program. We're now in that kind of middling period between mandatory minicamp and training camp. I'm going to let you guys know, kind of where I stand on this Commanders roster right now and which guys I think are going to end up making the final roster this year. But make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you are pumped, just like we are here at the Commanders Report for the 2025 season. I think this is going to be, like last year, a season to remember, maybe even ending in a Super Bowl championship. Fingers crossed. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you're excited for this season. So we'll start with the quarterbacks. This one's probably the easiest room. They carried 3 last year. I think they'll do the same this year. It's going to be an interesting battle between Sam Hartman and Josh Johnson. But I think Hartman has really ingratiated himself to both Marcus Mariota and Jaden Daniels. And I think that if Jaden and Marcus have any say in who that third quarterback's going to be, I think that they are going to want to go with Sam. Now, obviously, Hartman's going to have to prove it in the preseason and on the practice field during training camp. But I think he will, and I think he'll be this year's version of Jeff Driscoll for this team. Then we get to the running backs. I think they'll carry 4 just like they did last season. Actually, last year, I think they carried 4. But then they get Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler will be your number 2. Then I think Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt will start the season as the 3. That could potentially get more and more work as the season goes on. And then Jeremy McNichols will be their true depth piece at the position here in 2025. Then we get to the tight end room where I expect them to carry 4, the same 4 than they did last year. Zach Ertz, John Bates, Ben Sennett, and then Colson Yankoff, all making the team yet again here in 2025. Then we get to the wide receivers. I got 6 of them for you guys here. Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Noah Brown will be probably your starters heading into the year, but then Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane are 2 young guys that if they get the opportunity could show out. And then I actually think Chris Moore, watch out for Chris Moore to get the job over KJ Osborne and Michael Gallup. Gallup dealt with injuries during the offseason program, and I don't think KJ Osborne's all that good, but Chris Moore showed some really great stuff during Commanders OTAs this year. I think once we get to training camp, he's going to have a shot to make this team. Then we get to the offensive line. I think the starting offensive line week 1, Sam Cosmi is going to be on the injured reserve. Okay, that's the expectation, is that he's not going to be ready to go week 1. So the week 1 starting O-line, you got Tunsil, you got Coleman, you got Biotish. Wiley, I think he's going to make the move to right tackle to right guard once it becomes apparent that Josh Connerly Jr., the first-round rookie out of Oregon, is going to win that right tackle job. Then when it comes to the offensive line depth to start the season, I'm going to go Nick Allegretti, starter for this team last year, experience and chemistry with the players currently on the starting offensive line. He becomes a depth piece this year. Same thing with Trent Scott, who played a little bit last year, can play tackle or guard. Nate Herbig, who this team brought in free agency, can play center or guard. Really love that as a depth piece. And then Tyree Phillips, a guy that's played some tackle in the National Football League. He'll be your backup tackle for the Commanders to start the season, in my opinion. So coming up here on the Commanders Report, defense and special teams. Which players are going to make the roster? Which ones will not? And then I got some practice squad players for you guys, some practice squad priorities as well later in today's show. But if you didn't at the beginning of today's show, I really do encourage you guys to click that thumbs up icon. It really does help out the channel. If you're enjoying our content today, and if you enjoy our content generally, clicking that thumbs up icon takes a half second of your time, and it really is the easiest way to help us out, and it helps get this video out to more Commanders fans like yourselves, which helps us increase our subscriber base and help us grow this family that we have grown to over 40,000 subscribers now. So thank you guys so much for all of your support. And now we get to the defense here. With the defensive tackles, I think they'll carry 5, just like they did last year. Deron Payne, Jerzon Newton, Javon Kinlaw will be the guys mainly on the field, with Eddie Goldman being a rotational piece as a nose tackle, with Sheldon Day as depth. Then at defensive end, just like last year, 4 players I expect to make the team this year. Now, hopefully they add somebody in free agency or via trade before the season starts, but if they go into training camp in the season without adding at this position, I expect the 4 to make the team to be Dorrance Armstrong, Cleveland Ferrell, Dietrich Wise, and Jacob Martin. Then you get to the linebackers here. 5 of them here this year. I'm going to go Frankie Luvu, Bobby Wagner as your main starters. Jordan McGee is going to be a rotational bandit type of player, a pass coverage type of player for this team. Then Kane Medrano is probably going to replace Nick Bellower's role as a special team specialist from the linebacker position. And then you got Dominique Hampton, another special teamer that can go out there, play linebacker, play safety as well. But he's really known more as a special teams specialist. Then at safety, I'm going to have them carry 5 this year. Quan Martin, Will Harris will be your 2 main guys at this position. But then Percy Butler, who this coaching staff for some reason really likes, I think will make the team. Tyler Owens is somebody that could kind of break out and maybe even get into that bandit type of role, especially if there's an injury to Jordan McGee. But Owens, another good special team player. And then speaking of special teams, there's your ace, Jeremy Reeves, going to make the team again here, probably be a team captain. Then in the cornerback room, I will have them carry 5 this year as well. Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Samerstrill, and probably Trey Amos will be your week 1 starters. Jonathan Jones, though, really, really good depth piece. Can play outside, can play inside. If there's an injury to one of your starters, you can trust that this cornerback room is still going to be pretty darn good. And then Noah Igbenogany, I think, will also make the team as a scrappy, if not remarkable, slot cornerback option for this football team. Then, of course, on the special teams here, Tressway, one of the best punters in football. Matt Gay, the new kicker here in Washington, will make the team almost certainly. And then Tyler Ott, one of the best long snappers in the league, I also expect to make the team this year. Then we get to some practice squad guys here, and these are the priorities. All right, these are the guys that I would want to keep. Now, obviously, teams can poach these guys if they don't make the final 53-man roster, but, I think that all these guys would have a pretty decent shot of being able to be added to the Commanders' practice squad this year. Guys like Chris Rodriguez Jr., Javonte Jean-Baptiste, former late-round picks with still some promise, Nick Bellore, Fentrell Cypress, a UDFA this year that I think this team might want to continue to do business with. Chris Paul has some experience with this team, as well as been on this roster for a long time. Michael Dieter was a backup last year, but I think could be a decent practice squad kind of stash. Tim McKay, another UDFA that was highly sought after this year. Dealing with some injury stuff, but I think the Commanders might want to keep him around. Cole Turner, another guy that's been a part of the organization for a while. Ja'Cory Brooks, another UDFA with some promise. And Robert McDaniel, somebody that I think could be a roster bubble type of player. He can play a bunch of different roles. He played edge, slot corner, and safety for Jackson State last year, so he could play a bunch of different roles, could potentially be a special teamer as well. I don't think that they're going to want to let go of that Swiss Army knife type of skill set. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section who will surprisingly make the Commanders roster this year. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. If you guys want kind of my dark horse to make the roster, I don't have him on my projected 53-man roster right now, but somebody that I think could make waves during Commanders training camp, I'm going to go with Robert McDaniel, the UDFA out of Jackson State. He can just play so many roles, and in the modern NFL where you want players that can play a bunch of different roles, just look at guys like Kyle Hamilton, Brian Branch, all these different guys. And I'm not saying McDaniel's going to be as good as those guys. I'm just saying that it's more positionless type of defense that is dominating the modern NFL. And Robert McDaniel was a big-time playmaker at Jackson State at a bunch of different positions. And with the Commanders wanting to do a bunch of this modern NFL defense type of stuff, it wouldn't shock me if McDaniel makes waves during Commanders training camp and makes the final roster. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We got more extensive Commanders content coming your way before the start of training camp over the next few weeks. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already to never miss a moment. All right, we got the mailbag coming up here in just a moment.
Yes,
Joey,
we
how
do.
are we doing on the questions?
We got some more, which is great. I think we got 3 more. I still want to, before we roll into it, I still want to get like 3 more. We got 111 people in here. I just need 3 more questions. We've already asked about Scary Terry some. Let's get some new ones in there. They can be about this upcoming season. They can be some trade rumors around other players along the National Football League. They can be about UDFAs, about next year's draft, whatever you want. Get those in the comment section. Jack will get that answer, and I'll see which ones are the best. So we need at least 3 more questions.
Let's put on a 2-minute shot clock on. So you guys got 2 minutes to think of a question. Get it down there in the comment section, and then we'll get into the mailbag to finish off this week's live show. You guys always have the best questions, so I'm looking forward to this mailbag for sure. Did I hear Joey say, kind of tip me off there? There's going to be some Terry McLaurin questions
There
coming?
will be some Terry McLaurin
Okay,
questions.
so that, I mean, obviously that is the hot topic issue.
Big one.
And we haven't really talked about it so far today, Joey, so we can talk about it, I guess, now. I'm going to continue to say this. There's been no new developments on that front. People keep asking me, what's the latest on this? What's the latest on Terry? You're not going to hear about a whole lot, I think, until training camp. Until very close to training camp, all right? Deadlines make deals, all right? So if they haven't come to an agreement yet, I would suspect that it's probably not going to happen until close to that deadline, which is the start of training camp. Yeah. So, and it might even happen shortly after training camp, all right? Like, I do expect Terry to be there. I think he wants to win. I think he wants to be here, all these different things. So I do think he will be at training camp. I do think he could maybe hold in.
Yeah,
he'll be there at training camp. I don't know if he'll practice until we have an answer on the contract there. But I'm looking forward here to what we're going to get done here. I do think that's going to get done. I've been continuously saying this. I've been very consistent on this, Joey. I'm not really sweating it too much because I know Terry wants to be here, and I know the Commanders want him to be here badly because they know that they need him. So, like, when you have a situation like this, it just always gets done. Yeah. It just always does. And, you know, the holdouts and, you know, not getting contracts done, it's kind of a way for, frankly, NFL media looking at us here to get more clicks and get more views and, you know, have something to talk about during this time of the year. Even though it's probably going to get done, this is the time where people speculate. So I really say to you guys, with 20 seconds left to go, before we get things going in our mailbag here, I'm not too worried about the Terry McLaurin situation. But if you're hoping to hear, you know, about an extension happening within the next couple days or even the next couple weeks, I think you're going to be disappointed. I think it's going to happen very close to the start of training camp.
It's one of those deals. It's like Dak Prescott last offseason.
Yeah, right.
You knew it was going to happen.
Yeah,
and the whole time he's holding out. He's not practicing. But you just knew it was going to happen.
Yeah,
and it will. It's going to happen. Both sides want it to happen.
Nick Bosa the year before that, when he got paid literally like the day before week 1. Like, it just these things just tend to happen this way, and I'm not worried about it at all. All right, so let's get into the mailbag here, guys. It's my favorite segment of the week. You guys always give me the best questions here, so let's get into it right now. The Commanders Report mailbag coming at you right now. It's my favorite segment of the week. It is the Commanders Report Mailbag, where I answer your questions on the Burgundy and Gold for the week. Before we get into the questions today, I'll implore you guys to click that subscribe button, join the most interactive Commanders fan community anywhere on YouTube. We have live watch parties for every single Commanders game. We also go live every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, where we film these mailbags, by the way, and we give you guys breaking news coverage every time the Commanders make a big move. So if you guys want extensive, in-depth, informative Commanders content every single day, and you want to join the most interactive community of Commanders fans anywhere on YouTube with over 40,000 Commanders fans already subscribed, click that subscribe button right now. Got our first question of the day, comes from Caesar Holmes, LLC. Says, who will be the next OC once Kingsbury has another strong season? I don't see Kingsbury here after next year. Listen, man, I agree. I think that Kingsbury will probably get a head coaching job somewhere else after hopefully 2 straight seasons of success here in Washington. And it really does depend on the coaching cycle and which coaching staffs get stripped and, who gets fired and all this different stuff. I will say 2 names that come to mind right away. Brian Daboll of the New York Giants. I think he would love to coach Jaden Daniels. I mean, if you guys watched the Hard Knocks, the offseason Hard Knocks for the New York Giants last offseason, Daboll was caught on camera saying that he would have traded up and he wanted to trade up for Jaden Daniels. So, I think he would love to coach him here. He might go back to Buffalo. We'll see what ends up happening if he gets fired in New York. But another name to watch out for is Mike McDaniel, all right, the current head coach of the Miami Dolphins, who is an offensive mastermind, all right? All the pre-snap motions and all the interesting things he does for Tua there in Miami. I think he elevates Tua to a place where, frankly, in any other offense he would not reach, at least from a production standpoint. And seeing Mike McDaniel's offense matched with Jaden Daniels, it might even be better than what Cliff Kingsbury's doing here in Washington, all right? Like, that would be very intriguing to me. Those are just 2 names that come at the top of my head here. Obviously, it depends on which coaching staffs are, get fired, which college coaches look good, who has connections to Dan Quinn. I'm sure we'll talk about this more once we get towards the end of the 2025 season. Then we got ZX here, says, you have been saying that you think that Adam Peters is not done yet this offseason. What big move or moves do you think he will make? I think that obviously the Terry McLaurin extension is probably the one that's going to be the biggest one. But there's still a potential trade on the table for Trey Hendrickson. We'll see how that situation with the Bengals plays out. But I think out of all the guys that are quote unquote holding out right now in the NFL, that's the one that I could actually see maybe, concluding in a trade at some point. And if that happens, I think the Commanders will be in that mix of teams that will be very much in on a Trey Hendrickson trade. But they might also just sign another edge rusher, right? There's still multiple veteran pass rushers still available. Von Miller, Zadarius Smith, Jadeveon Clowney. If they're just kind of holding out for Trey Hendrickson and then, they're fine, signing one of these veterans late in the offseason, that could be a big move that ends up happening here. We still don't have official word on Noah Brown. I'm pretty sure, John Keim did say that he expects it to not be serious and Noah's going to be okay. But, if he has a significant injury that we're not aware of right now, they could maybe add another receiver. We'll see what ends up happening here. I do kind of think that there's going to be at least one more big move that happens for the Commanders this offseason. Guess we're just going to have to wait and see what that is. Got one from James Faison. Says, can we pay Scary Terry already? Enough with the nonsense. He is our guy. Obviously these negotiations are, kind of tricky. And I think Terry knows he has a lot of leverage with the team because, if you take him out of this offense, I think you can make a very good argument. This is not a Super Bowl caliber team without Terry McLaurin as your number 1 receiver. All right, and I think he knows that, which is why he may be asking for an enormous amount of money, like Justin Jefferson level money, where he's asking for like $35, $36 million per season, and I don't think that the Commanders would want to pay that. Now, maybe he's asking for 33, which is what DK Metcalf got this year, and the Commanders want to give him 30, maybe because he's approaching the age of 30. They don't want to give him too many guarantees past this season, and that's the sticking point. Who really knows what the sticking point is between these two sides? But obviously they're not coming together on a deal just yet. And I do expect it to get done, but it's probably going to get done closer to the deadline, which is the start of training camp. So play GM for me down there in the comments section. How much money would you be willing to pay Scary Terry McLaurin per season on his next contract? How high are you willing to go? $30 million per season? $33 million per season? $35 million per season? How high are you willing to go for Scary Terry? Let me know down there in the comments section for today's pinned question. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, and when that happens, take advantage of that time. But let me know, how many dollars per season would you be willing to pay Scary Terry? Got one from Jaden. Says, do you think Kane Madrano could be a bandit safety / linebacker because of his elite coverage skills? I think that, maybe down the line, yeah. The reason why they're getting a lot of these kind of like smaller linebackers / bigger safety type of players is because it's an important role in Dan Quinn's defense, man. Like Jaron Kearse played this role fantastically in Dallas. Jeremy Chin played this role pretty darn well last year here in Washington. And now they're trying to find that next piece because Will Harris I don't think is big enough to play that true bandit safety role. He's only he's slightly over 200 pounds, where I think you got to be at least like 220 to effectively play the bandit role. So, Jordan McGee, I think, is the guy that they're hoping is going to be able to take that next step this year. And then maybe Madrano can step into that role if McGee eventually fails. Dominique Hampton's another guy that's kind of fits this mold as well. Athletic as hell, kind of ball hawk type of player. So we'll see how this whole situation kind of sorts itself out. But Kane Madrano, obviously they like his physical skill set. We'll see what ends up happening with him in the months and years to come here in Washington. Got one from JG, says, Noah Igbenogany seems to be highly regarded as a depth guy, but his PFF rank is pretty low. What is it about his game that the Commanders like? He's scrappy, and I'll give him credit for that. All right, the players in the locker room love him. He tries, okay? Like, that's what I will say. Some guys are terrible, and you can just tell on film that they're not really, giving it their best effort. Noah Igbenogany is out there, and he's giving 100% of himself on film every single week, every single play. And that's the type of shit that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. eat up, man. They love players like that, all right? And, obviously, he wasn't fantastic. He's never been fantastic in this league. But the reason why he keeps making NFL teams and why he continues to get opportunities is because, he really tries to max out everything that he does on the field. And he does do that, and I do think that he's limited, severely limited. But, as somebody that does have some experience in this defense and has some chemistry with the guys in the group, I think, as a depth slot corner, which is what he is at this point in his NFL journey and on this team, I think you could do worse than Noah Igbenogany. So make sure you guys check out our friends at Fanatics if you haven't already. If you guys want a Deebo Samuel jersey in your closet and you want to help out the channel, you can kill two birds with one stone right now by using our special link that I have put down in the comments and description of today's show, chatsports.com/Deebo. You click that link and you make a purchase. Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds so that, we can pay our rent, to keep the lights on, pay for new graphics, to maintain, how our channel looks, all that different stuff. It takes money to do those things, guys, and we give you guys free content, so any contribution is greatly appreciated. Plus, in this scenario, you guys get a Deebo Samuel jersey. So go chatsports.com/Deebo if you want to get one today. Helps out the channel, helps you out because you get a Deebo jersey. It's all good things, so make a purchase today if you want a Deebo jersey. Okay, now let's get to Caesar Holmes. Again, another question from Caesar. It says, if Jaden continues to improve, who deserves the most credit? Well, I think it's a group effort. What's the saying? It takes a village to raise a child. I think it takes a village to raise a quarterback. Now, obviously, Jaden deserves a lot of credit because he's the one putting in the work. He's the one that's actually playing out there. Certainly his family deserves some credit. Certainly Cliff Kingsbury deserves some credit for putting him in the right position. Pritchard, the quarterback coach here in Washington, deserves some credit for making him, getting him prepared every single week. But I would say probably the person that deserves the most credit is Jaden Daniels. All right, like he's the one putting in the work. He's the one that's taking care of his body. He's the one that's doing all the VR shit, to get him prepared for the games every single week. Like Jaden has absolutely transformed himself over the last several years, going from his last season at LSU to his first season here in Washington, and now I think he's going to take even another step here in year 2. So I think that Jaden probably deserves the most credit, but there's certainly a lot of people out there that deserve a portion of that credit as well. Got another one from Jaden. It says, if Laramie Tunsil goes down, Would you move Connerly to the left side and move Wiley back to right tackle? This would suck, right? And I think everyone acknowledges this because Laramie Tunsil's awesome when he's on the field and he's healthy. He's maybe the best pass protecting left tackle in all of football. It's why the Commanders traded as much as they did to get him. Connerly very recently played left tackle at Oregon as well, so you could certainly go that route. And obviously the Commanders have guys on the interior that they trust as backups, Nick Allegretti, Nate Herbig, who they brought in free agency, so that's certainly a way you could go. Another way that you could go is you could keep Connerly at right tackle, put Brandon Coleman back at left tackle, and then put Nick Allegretti, who started for this team at left guard, back at left guard. In that scenario, it'd be interesting to see what this team does in that scenario, Jaden, but there's a couple different ways that you could probably approach it. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. What is your confidence level in the Commanders' offensive line this year? Put it on a scale of 1. We're going to make it more simple here. 1 to 10. All right, 1 to 100, maybe a little bit too much there. 1 to 10. What's your confidence level in Washington's offensive line? I think it's got to be the highest it's been in years. I got to say at least a 7, maybe even an 8, especially when Sam Cosmi comes back from injury. I have a high level of confidence in this offensive line this year. If you're with me on that, let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And thank you guys so much for getting your questions in today and this week. I'm going to get to more questions next week on the Commanders Report live show, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. And until next time, guys, go raise some hail. All right, Joey. Well, that is it for our show today. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for making it to the end. Is there anything else that you want to talk about here before we head out for the week?
4 up, 4 down, baby.
4 up, 4 down is a good show. Appreciate you guys for stopping by today. We will see you guys later. And until next time, guys, hail to the Commanders.
There we go.